My name, Hello, my name is Yamara Angel, and I'm the strategy manager for post-secondary access here at Alabama Possible. And welcome to this webinar, Cash for College Steps After Submitting a FAFSA. We would like to take this time to thank our sponsors. Because of their support, we're able to provide these trainings for free. We would also like to thank our partners from the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, Alabama Community College System, Alabama State Department of Education, and Get Educated, which is the Common Black College application. Some housekeeping notes. Please keep your microphones on mute at all times. Please disable AI note takers unless accommodations are needed. Please let us know by sending us a message. This webinar will be recorded and posted to youtube.com/Alabama Possible within the next 2 days. Submit your questions in the chat and we'll answer them throughout and towards the end of the webinar. And finally, we value everyone's feedback, but it is especially important for high school educators seeking professional development credit to stay until the very end and answer the final set of poll questions to receive full credit. If you post your college-going efforts on social media, tag us at AL Goes to College, and don't forget to use the following hashtags. For those who are unfamiliar with the Alabama Goes to College campaign, there are three main components to the campaign. Cash for College, which the goal is for every graduating senior to complete the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid before they graduate from high school, so that they can access federal, state, and institutional aid to pay for their education after high school. The Alabama College Application Week, which is part of the national effort designed to help high school seniors, especially first generation and low income students, navigate the college application process and apply to at least one post-secondary institution. And the College and Career Decision Day, which celebrates students committing to pursue their education, credentials, pursue skilled trade, or join the military after high school. So Spring Free College Application Week is February 23rd to the 27th for those students who are still looking to apply. Today's learning objectives include gain confidence with navigating the steps students must take after submitting their FAFSA, understanding how to provide support for students to make informed financial decisions about their next steps after high school, and then leverage data tools to monitor student level, school level, and district level FAFSA completion progress. So now I'll hand it over to May for FAFSA completion data and poll questions.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm May Whiting, the Data and Research Director. I want to start off with giving a quick update on the class of 2026's FAFSA completion progress so far. So Alabama is currently ranked 29th in the nation, with 38% of our high school seniors having already completed a FAFSA. So that's that orange line that you see in the graph. We're only a couple percentage points behind the national rate of 40.2%, which is the blue line above it. So we're definitely on a good trajectory, not that far behind the national average. And then this graph comes from the National College Attainment Network's FAFSA tracker. If you're not familiar with that, we'll have it linked in the slides. It is only showing data through the end of January, so as of January 30th. If you're not familiar with this tool, it is one way to just quickly check our state's progress compared to other states around the country to see how we're faring. What we've seen in the last few cycles is that Typically for Alabama, there's a pretty big uptick in the months of February and March. So even though we are ranked 29th in the nation right now, we do anticipate getting much higher in the ranking. So just want to encourage you all. Thank you for all the work that you're doing to support your seniors with FAFSA completion. And then a little bit later on in our presentation today, we're going to talk about other tools that you can leverage to track FAFSA completion for your students. So I want to go ahead and launch a poll question for y'all. So, as we're thinking about supporting our students after they've submitted their FAFSA, we want to just better understand whether or not y'all are including any kind of content that addresses post-submission tasks when you're talking to seniors. So, we know there are lots of things your seniors have to do after they press the submit button, and we really just want to understand your capacity to support them with those various tasks. So I'll give it another 30 seconds or so for y'all to respond to this. All right, it looks like most folks have responded, and about two-thirds of you are having these conversations. We know that your role as educators, you're covering lots of different topics way beyond FAFSA, so we know you might have limited capacity to have these conversations with students. But today, throughout the webinar, we really do want to equip you with some resources and just a better understanding of what the post-submission tasks might look like for your seniors. All right, Samara, back to you.
Thank you, May. So now we'll talk about what happens after students hit the submit button on their FAFSA. This is sometimes where students and families may need the most guidance and support. So many students don't realize that when they press submit on their FAFSA, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're done. Their information may not fully be accurate or complete. The submission is just one step in the process. Some students will need to complete additional steps after submitting the FAFSA, and this is where often we may need to support students to navigate these post-submission tasks to ensure that they actually receive their financial aid. So, what are these next steps? Here are 6 steps that students need to take after submitting their FAFSA. So, 1, check the status of their application. 2, review their FAFSA submission summary. 3, make any necessary corrections. 4, provide verification information if requested. 5, review financial aid offers from colleges. And 6, decide what aid to accept. And we'll walk through these in detail throughout the presentation. For dependent students, the process involves both the student and the parent or the contributor. Depending on who started the FAFSA, either the student or the parent should receive a congratulatory confirmation page after submitting. The congratulations screen will only appear when both the student and the parent have completed their respective sections. If only one person has finished, the FAFSA isn't fully submitted yet. So this screenshot shows what it looks like when only the dependent students portion is complete. The message will indicate that the parent will also need to contribute before the FAFSA is fully complete. So it is important to help students understand that they would need to follow up with their parents to ensure both sections are done. The screenshot shows that both the student and the parent sections of the FAFSA are complete. Students will see this congratulations message. It is important to note that this congratulations screen does not necessarily mean that the student doesn't have any more steps remaining. They may need to provide additional information or make corrections. This congratulation page just confirms that both students and parents have submitted their portions. After submission, students can monitor the status of their forms by logging into Federal Student Aid. It can take up to from 1 to 10 business days for the Department of Education to process a FAFSA. The timeline depends on how this form was submitted. So 1 to 3 days if they submitted an online application, and then 7 to 10 days if they submitted a paper application. So encourage students to be patient, but also check regularly during the processing window. When students log in to check their status, they will see their application in its current status. This is where they can monitor the progress. So the arrow points to where they can check. So let's review what each status message means. When it shows draft, the student started their FAFSA form but hasn't completed the required sections. If it shows in progress, the student completed the required section but hasn't submitted the form yet. If it shows action required, the student completed the required section, but there is an error and a correction is needed. This may include a missing consent and approval or a signature. If it shows in review, the form was submitted but hasn't been processed yet. This is normal and expected during the processing time. And then process. So the FAFSA form was processed successfully with no errors. Students should check regularly the status of their application to confirm it's been processed. This is a way to see if students may have skipped some steps or they might need to complete some follow-up task. If a student's application says in review for extended period, they should call Federal Student Aid at the 1-800 number to check why. Once the form has been processed, here is what happens. A record of the information is sent to the colleges that the students listed on the FAFSA. Students will receive their financial aid offers directly from the schools where they are applying and admitted, not from federal student aid. This is an important distinction. And federal student aid processes the FAFSA, but individual colleges make the aid offers. So now let's look at the FAFSA submission summary, something that every student should review carefully. Here's what the FAFSA submission summary looks like. As you can see, it provides a comprehensive overview of the student's FAFSA information and estimated eligibility. The colleges will give the student the final offer. The FAFSA submission summary summarizes the information that the student reported on the FAFSA form. It includes an overview of the student's aid eligibility, information about the schools they're considering, and next steps related to paying for school. Students should read their submission summary carefully as soon as they receive it. The eligibility overview includes the estimated eligibility for federal grants, work studies, and loans. I want to emphasize that these are only estimates and that the students' colleges will make the final decision about the aid offered. An overview also includes the Student Aid Index, or SAI, which is an index number used by colleges to determine financial aid eligibility and to build a financial aid offer. If a student finds a mistake when reviewing the FAFSA submission summary, they'll need to correct it or update the FAFSA. Most of the questions on the FAFSA want to know the situation as of the day that the student signs the application. However, there are some instances in which the student may want to or require to change the information reported. So let's look at when and how to make these corrections. So students can make corrections online if they're adding a missing signature, adding a missing consent and approval, If they're correcting a response to the direct unsubsidized loan only question, and they should answer no for this question. Correcting their social security number, and they will change that in their account settings. Updating personal contact information that includes mailing or email addresses, and they will do that in the account settings as well. Adding or removing a school or fixing any typos. Corrections that should be made through the school should be updating financial information related to amended tax return and requesting an update to the financial institution if the financial situation has changed significantly. Here's a screenshot of the FAFSA submission summary. If the student needs to make a correction, students can go under the FAFSA form answers and click on make a correction where the box indicates it right here. One of the most common corrections students may want to make is adding or removing a school. So this happens when students change their mind about where they're applying to, get accepted to a new school, or they receive additional applications after submitting their FAFSA. So selecting the option to add or remove a school will start a voluntarily correction to update their selected schools. This is straightforward and doesn't require any additional verification. Students can search for and select schools to add to their FAFSA, and they'll just add or remove schools click on the button right there, and then they can search by school's name, city, and state. And this is where they can manage the complete list of schools, adding new ones or removing ones that they no longer are considering. On the FAFSA submission summary, there might be a note that the student has been selected for verification. It is important to emphasize the verification process that the school uses to confirm that the data reported on the FAFSA is accurate. This does not mean that the student is in trouble or did anything wrong. There are two types of verification: federal verification and institutional verification. So both are designed to ensure accuracy in the financial aid process. The financial aid office of the colleges where the students have been admitted might also contact the student directly to request verification. The verification process varies by each school, so students need to pay attention to the specific requirements from each institution. Generally, the student provides additional documentation that supports the original information reported on the FAFSA. It is critical that students respond quickly to requests for documentations. A financial aid offer depends on this information, and delays in verification can delay offers to the students. So the financial aid, here's an explanation of what the verification, here is the financial aid office of the colleges where the student has been admitted might also contact the student. So the verification process varies by each school. The student provides additional documentation that supports the original information reported. It is important to report quickly to request for documentation to clarify information, as the financial aid offer depends on this information. So here's an example of what the verification process is, how students should explain to receive them, and how to submit any requested follow-up documentation. What kind of information might be verified? So common items include income tax information. So this might include tax transcript, financial family size information, and identity and statement of educational purpose. So verification that the student is who they say they are. It will use aid for educational purposes. Students will need to gather these documents promptly and submit them according to the school's instructions. Now we get to reviewing financial aid offers. So students will receive their offers directly from the schools where they're applying to and admitted. Each offer will take into account that the school's specific cost of attendance, which can vary significantly from one institution to another. Some colleges post their offers online to the students' portal accounts, so students should check their student aid accounts frequently. Each student has a different schedule. Each school has a different schedule for offering and paying out financial aid. Some schools send offers in the spring, while others may send offers until later in the summer. So when the student decides which school they want to attend, letting students know that the aid does not automatically apply and that they must accept or decline each type of aid is important. So what if the student's financial aid situation changes or in their family, the students and family situation change significantly because of financial hardships or unemployment? The student and their family will submit the 2024 tax information, which may or may not fully reflect their current financial situation if something has changed recently. So, if this is the case, students should communicate this with the financial aid office at the school immediately after completing the FAFSA and before receiving any offers. Financial aid offices have set guidance on how to proceed. What if the student's financial aid offer still doesn't reflect their financial need, even after explaining their circumstances? So students can appeal directly to the college with supporting documents. Colleges can use what's called professional judgment to adjust the financial aid offer. There are resources to help with this process. So students can use an appeal template found on Swift Student, and they can read more about the process on how to appeal on Get School's website. Um, these resources provide templates and guidance for financial aid appeals, and we'll follow up with these links in the follow-up email as well. When reviewing aid offers, the main items that the student should understand include overall cost of attendance. So this is the total cost to attend at school. Total aid offered. So this is what the school is giving the student. One important note to remember is that the offer may show these on a semester basis or an annual basis, so students need to pay attention to which one they're looking at when making the comparison. A breakdown of the overall cost of attendance typically includes tuition and fees, food and housing, textbooks and supplies, lab and course fees, transportation, health and medical care, personal and miscellaneous living expenses. Every offer should have a standard information, but they might be formatted differently from school to school. So this is why it is important to help students understand how to read these offers. We'll look at the total aid offered. There are three main categories. So one is gifted aid that does not need to be repaid. This includes scholarships and grants. This is the best kind of money because they don't have to pay it back. And that must be worked for, so this is work study. And students will need to earn this money by working a part-time job on or near campus. And then there's aid that must be repaid with interest. So it is helpful to let them know that it is important to let them know that they would need to repay and also keep in mind that interest when they're taking out these loans. One of the most useful ways to compare offers across schools is to calculate the net cost, so also known as net price. The formula is net cost equal cost of attendance minus gifted aid. This tells you how much a student has left to pay out of pocket or through student loans after accounting for aid that doesn't need to be repaid. Each school should have a net price calculator on their website that should be helpful with this estimate. When comparing overall cost of attendance, students should also consider how do living expenses and indirect cost vary at each school. So cost of living, including things like apartment rent, will also depend significantly on the city or state. What assumptions are made? So the letter might also provide cost based on full-time enrollment, or it might assume the student lives on campus versus off campus. And then what will be the total cost to complete the program? Students should multiply the annual cost by the expected number of schools in the expected number of years in school. When comparing total aid offers, here are some critical questions. Can the grant and scholarships be renewed each year? Some scholarships are one time only, while others renew automatically. And then, of course, there are certain criteria a student might need to maintain the aid. So, like minimum GPA or full-time enrollment. An offer probably won't reflect any private scholarships the student has won. So, will this outside aid reduce the amount of aid offered by the college? This is also called aid displacement, and students should check with the schools about their policies on this. Additional questions about total aid offered. So how many hours can or a student must work if they accept work-study jobs? Some programs are flexible, while others have minimum requirements. Students need to consider whether they can balance work with their academic schedule. And then what are the terms and conditions of any loans offered? So this includes interest rates, whether the interest accrued while in school, repayment timelines, and any fees associated with loans. And then when comparing the balance due, what students will owe after the aid is applied. So they should ask, does this school offer a payment plan? Many schools allow families to spread payments across this semester or year. Are there any fees or interest charges associated with payment plan options? Some schools charge enrollment fees or interest for payment plans, so which can also add up to the overall cost. Here's an example of what an award letter looks like. You can also see this sample that the format includes the cost of attendance, type of aid offers, and net cost to the student. Every format is different, so students should keep that in mind as well. And I'm probably going to stop sharing my screen for a little bit and show one, let's see. I want to show a calculator that students can also use online. We see from You Aspire, they can always go in and type in this information, and they'll tell them everything started from like housing, direct cost, total grants, um, bills before loans, and they'll explain everything that they're adding into this calculator. And then it also gives them like an estimated of student loan debt after graduation and estimated monthly loan payment after graduation. They can always download this into a PDF file. See, yeah, you can see that as well on here. And then just it gives them next steps after reviewing financial aid offer. So this calculator, they will just need to create an account and they can go in and add financial aid offers and then compare those to each of the offers that the student is comparing them to. Let me see. Pause that and then let me go back to sharing. Okay. So when it comes to time to decide what aid to accept, here are some best general practice in order. So let me see. I think okay, I had the wrong slide. Okay. So first, students should accept the free money, of course. So this is scholarship and grants that don't need to be repaid. Second, they accept earned money, the work study programs. Third, they would accept federal student loans and only what is truly needed, right? So if the student accepts an offer, the financial aid staff at the school will explain exactly how and when aid will be paid out. This typically happens at the beginning of each semester. So one important thing, students should only accept, they don't need to accept everything on the offer. They have the option, for example, like if they want to, if they're only offered, let's say they're offered $5,500 in loans, and they only need $3,000, they can only accept those $3,000. So they don't have to accept everything that the loan, like the loan offers, are added on that offer letter. Um, so also they'll also tell the student whether they need to fill out any more paperwork or meet any additional requirements. So for instance, if a student is receiving a federal student loan for the first time, they should expect to be required to sign a promissory note and go through the entrance counseling. So they should be sure to check to keep in touch with the school's financial aid offers to understand the whole process of receiving financial aid. If a student must accept student loans, accept only the ones that are more favorable terms and conditions. So usually this means choosing a federal student loan offer. If a student is considering getting a state loan or a school loan or a private loan, they should learn about the differences between federal and other loans. And they should only borrow what they need. So so we have this resource on our educators toolkit, and it is a one-page handout, what happens after submitting your FAFSA form. That kind of summarizes everything that we've kind of covered today in a student-friendly format. This handout walks through like 5 things. So confirming submission, processing the form, reviewing the submission summary, determining aid offers, and monitoring the status of the application. So you can always download this resource and share it with your students. And I'll pass it over to May to talk about the FAFSA portal.
Right. Thank you, Ciamara. So I know we went through a lot of content today, and we hope what you get out of this is that students are likely receiving communications from the colleges where they applied. And the best thing that you can do as an educator is just encourage them to stay on top of whatever email they're utilizing, or if they've already created a student portal with the institutions where they've been offered admissions, to just stay on top of any kind of messages that are coming from the financial aid offices of these schools where the student might be needing to do follow-up. So the best thing you can do is just encourage your students to stay on top of that. We know there's some resistance to checking email, so y'all can just be the one who's constantly on top of them, making sure they're checking those emails. Um, so we want to talk a little bit more about tools that y'all have as educators to support your seniors. One of those tools is the FAFSA completion portal that's run by the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, or AIC. We have one of our AIC representatives in the chat here with us. But this portal allows you to access school level, district level, and even student level FAFSA completion data. So you can use this tool as an educator to actually see the individual FAFSA completion progress of each of your seniors in your cohort. On the screen here, you're only looking at the landing page for the portal. So this is a public page that shows statewide data for all the schools that have signed an agreement with AIC. So if your district has signed an agreement, then that district's data is within the portal. And then also, if an agreement's already been signed, that means that you as an educator can be granted login credentials that then allows you to log in and see FAFSA completion data for your particular senior cohort. So you're looking at each individual student in your senior cohort and their respective FAFSA completion status. And then one really important function of the portal is that you're able to track students who have an incomplete FAFSA. So these are students who have some kind of reject code that is preventing their FAFSA from being fully complete. So like Samara said, just because a student has pressed the submit button doesn't mean that their FAFSA is totally complete. They might need to go back and correct errors, submit a correction. So the portal allows you to track those students who are incomplete. And these are really the students that we want to focus on over the next 3 months or so, because we know they have every intention of completing a FAFSA. Just somewhere along the way, they've hit a roadblock or didn't understand that they had more information they needed to provide to get to that fully complete status. So, that's just a brief overview of the portal. I want to check really quickly on our next slide with this poll question, just to see how many of y'all. Oh, I just lost my poll screen. Where'd it go? How many of y'all do already have access to the portal? And if you don't, we definitely want to get you connected with the right person on the AIC team. So I'm going to give a few seconds for y'all to respond to that question. And also just wanted to mention here, definitely appreciate those of you who completed our survey that got sent out last week in our newsletter and gave us some feedback on the portal. I believe I've followed up with everyone who submitted a survey response last week. But like Ron mentioned in the chat, some of y'all have brought up concerns about your students who did complete their FAFSA in October, so the first month of the FAFSA cycle, and have told us that they haven't been showing up as complete in the portal. So I think AIC is doing a kind of an ongoing investigation into that issue. And as Ron mentioned, to us at least, it might be good to check the portal on or after February 16th, so that's next Monday, to see if those students who completed in October are now showing up correctly. So definitely keep an eye on that if you are already currently a portal user and you've brought up or noticed some students who completed all the way back in October but still aren't showing as complete in your portal. So thank you for your response there. I see two-thirds of y'all are tracking your students, so that's great to hear. I'm going to close that poll out. See, Ron added a note. Yes, so Ron mentioned if you're not sure whether you have an account or you do need one, you can contact AIC. The email's in the chat, but I'll just say it aloud. It's FAFSA at aic.edu or FAFSA at ache.edu. And then, as Ron mentioned, as it relates to the portal, districts have set up local access managers who basically serve as an administrator to grant people accounts within the district. So a district should have a point person that could then give accounts to career coaches, to counselors, all the relevant people who are supporting seniors. So even senior sponsors could have an account to track students. And as we've seen in the past, at least as we've monitored schools that have had really high rates of FAFSA completion, the schools with the greatest success are those that really view FAFSA completion as a team effort. So they're pulling in all kinds of people to track the data, to reach out directly to students, to follow up with families who really need to be a part of this process. So it's really an all hands on deck process. All right, so if y'all have any questions about that, feel free to drop them in the chat or definitely follow up with us or Ake via email. So I want to talk a little bit about our end of year awards for Alabama Goes to College. So y'all might be familiar, but we have a big end of year celebration in June, and we recognize outstanding achievements in FAFSA completion with a couple different awards. But in order for us to be able to calculate those awards, we do need enrollment data. So we need to know how many seniors you have. And we pull enrollment data that's publicly available from the State Department of Education. But for those schools that are not included in ALSD's public data, we do need you to self-report your senior enrollment numbers. So yesterday, I reached out to all the schools that applied to. So you might have received an email in your inbox from our AL Goes to College email address. If you did receive an email from us yesterday, so February 10th, then please complete the form that was in that email by the end of the week. So you're just self-reporting the number of seniors in your class of 2026. And then if you did not receive that email, then you do not need to fill out this form. So don't click this link when you get the slides in the follow-up email. It just applies to the schools that we reached out to. And then for those of you who have been notified that we need your senior enrollment data, if we don't receive those numbers, then unfortunately your school will not be considered for one of our end of year awards, as we wouldn't be able to calculate your FAFSA completion rate. So I'll send out a reminder later in the week just to make sure we get those numbers from everyone. But let me know if you have any questions with that, and otherwise, all yours, Samara.
Okay, do we have any questions? I'll also give a little bit of time to type those in, maybe like a minute or so to type in these questions. Well, I'll just keep moving. If you want to go ahead and type them as we go, we can still type those questions in. And May, if you want to go ahead and do the poll questions.
Yes, we will have two sets of poll questions. So the first set is on your screen now. You should see three questions in this set, and then hang on for the second set so that we can get all of your responses, especially if you're looking for professional development credit. All right, I'll give this set another 15 seconds or so for everyone to respond, and then we'll move on to our second set. All right, so you should now see the second set of questions on your screen. And then the PD credit, you'll see the course number and the section number on the screen. We'll also provide that in the follow-up email so you know where to go in PowerSchool. All right, I'll give this set of questions about 15 more seconds, and then we'll give you some upcoming dates to be aware of for events and training webinars. All right, I'm closing out this poll, Samara.
Thank you so much. So save the dates. Tomorrow we have a community conversation at 10 a.m. on community support within schools. So how to build sustainable relations with businesses and community partners outside of the schools. We also have our College and Career Decision Day webinar on Wednesday, February 25th at 10:30 a.m. And then just for you to just save the date for June 3rd on our Celebration Day and Professional Development Workshop at 10:30 a.m. And you can register for all of these events at alabamapossible.org/events. Just a reminder, our help desk line is open to you students and families. Just call or text us at 334-316-6155, weekdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And as always, stay connected with us through our website, alabamagoestocollege.org, by calling or texting us at 334-316-6155, or emailing us at algoestocollege@alabamapossible.org. So, do we have any more questions in the chat or anything that popped? Don't think so. Well, if there are not any more questions, thank you for joining us today. You will be getting up a follow-up email by the end of the day, and then the recording should be up within the next 2 days. So we hope to see you join us again soon. Have a great rest of your morning.